Welcome to another edition of Spoken Word. This is called Rattle Chain. I escaped on the last train out of town. That day, the rain poured down in torrents from an obsidian sky that loomed overhead the coastal village. It lay upon the waves, and the tide was black and foreboding. Indeed, it was a good day to leave. Forsaken by the magic of the universe and utterly tired, I lit my head up against the crooked and cobweb-covered glass to appease the rattle and rumble of the tracks. In my jaw, it gibbered and jabbered against the top of my lips that no longer were there, as my unbeating heart within my ragged and skeletal chest yearned for the one who I had lost in the city I was just driven out of. Why did my decaying heart even care at all about the present or the past? I'm sure that I could hear it, its withering form rattle inside of me as the mist rolled over the seaside town. He had watched me die, dangling there from the noose under the arches, hand made of gallows before the cathedral doors. There in my final act I bared no remorse, and it wasn't ignored by him who I left behind. The single twitch of my toes in Morse code, I love you. I'd been searching the streets of the market town when malice stole my attention. Someone was muttering death threats, a predatory wolf in the skin of a guard who I could not escape. The poise and position of his rage within my lover, a hero, he found out. This demon of the flesh of the man whose vacant lay on top of me, trousers halfway down, his knees bent, utterly spent after decaying himself over me in the back alley of brick and cobblestones of a tiny ancient passageway on the east side of town, 1,000 years old. This is how I felt in the aftermath of rape. For a moment he let down his guard. My lover's malice wouldn't be necessary. I would deal with this vile creature myself. My hand clasped the wicker. The man in the ox car slipped from the childish bindings that he so withered hand bound about me. As the predator, his awareness slacked, but for a moment after his coming. I found his knife and drew it. One clean gash around his left arm, and I pulled him close to my chest. His neck was against my chest, and he breathed so heavily as the gash was so clean, and he dangled there, one hand in the bindings. I couldn't resist. How foolish the devil had been. His leather wrist guard and tunic melted away before the blade, and his forearm laid open like a sheep's belly. In a wrist to elbow, he would bleed out in a minute. Heavy, his breathing. Even after the mad lust the guard bestowed upon me and the possibility of countless women in the city, there was panic in his eyes as he realized that I had caused his doom. A simple young maiden. Slowly he curled up into a ball and lay there whimpering as I pushed him off. He died. A crowd had gathered at the entrance of the alley. Soon after the guards had come and I was swept up in the chaos of the counselor, a wicked man whose laugh would be realization of my final seconds. The impact to unconsciousness would be my last vision of rest. I stood between two guards moments later, waking in the cathedral courtyard under the archways, a noose dangling there waiting to steal my last words and my breath. So I thought to myself, sitting in this train, alone in the silence of the car, no lover to attempt another rescue of my forlorn undead, but nevertheless decaying beautiful heart. Where had my lover gone? I had seen him as I stood upon that chair, the murderer waiting to kick it out from underneath my feet. But I was ready to appease the death of my dreams, because I had taken back the right of women in the city. No guard ever again would touch the young women who walked about the streets and alleyways, because my hero, who I left behind, whose malice was forlorn with mercy and mourning for me as I died, I knew he would make sure that my death would be forever atoned in the city of vacantness. And that seaside town now sits there. It is a harbor on a white tide, and 1,000 maidens ride the waves like the last unicorn before the raging bull. And it is a beautiful place, and there is no more violence, and there is no blaming. And my death was a beautiful thing. Now I wait for the next destination upon this rattling train down the tracks to a gray city at twilight amusement.